All right.
It's rolling.
Oh,
Yeah.
I knew that.
Cool.
I'm just looking at pictures of our dogs.
Neat.
Mugs Up Monday. Hey everyone, it's Monday again,
Sure is.
and here we are with our mugs.
I like yours. It says yes. Happy
It's a
Monday.
weird angle. My name's George Brooks. I'm one of the founders here at Crema.
And I am Allison Renfro. I'm one of the product managers here at Crema. We're talking about how to sell your idea, your concept, up the ladder, up the chain, at your organization or really anywhere.
Yeah, we're going to talk about selling up because it's hard,
It's hard, it's awkward, it's weird, it's difficult.
and we help people do it, and we do it ourselves to some extent.
Yeah.
And there's maybe some questions and some tips.
Yeah.
What are some ideas or some examples of ideas that get sold up into a company, or that we maybe see get sold up into a company?
Well, it can depend. There can be lots of different variations of this, right? So it can start with just an idea. Like, for example, if you're at a large corporation and your team wants to utilize a new tool, you decide that you're going to take on that tool, and your team decides it. Having to sell that idea up the chain is equally as difficult as selling a new product or a new version of your product up the chain. So it can vary from something small to something huge.
I completely agree with that, but what do you think? What are some of the fears that leadership feels or maybe might be concerned about when they're thinking about saying yes or no to an idea that's being sold to them?
Oh gosh. There's, sunken costs, not even just money, it's time and your resources. So as a manager, and I'm not a manager, so you can probably speak to this a bit more. Like when you shift your team's focus onto something different, there's a huge risk that you're taking. And I think that a lot of people, in management fear that. And they also have people that they're reporting to, right? They've got goals that they need to meet. They've probably got KPIs somewhere that they need to meet. So I think those things are usually running through, the manager's
Leadership's
heads.
head. Yeah, it's hard because when you are selling, you have to have a certain level of empathy, which I think that word is so overused, but it does apply here that you have to kind of put yourselves in the shoes of leadership. Like you said, everybody reports to somebody, right? So even if it's the boss, even if it's the CEO, they probably have a board. And if it's the board, it's the shareholders. There's always this who does it really come down to? And so there's the question of, okay, cool. We know that you're trying to be innovative, or we know that you're trying to create something new, or you're not just wanting to spend our money, you're wanting to help us make money. But you're asking me to take a risk. And you're asking me to take that risk on you, on your idea, on the fact that it may not work. And so I think they're trying to de-risk almost all the time. They're trying to figure out how can we make this the safest bet possible. And sometimes it's not a safe bet. And so how do you kind of alleviate that? I think from a leadership perspective, we have ideas that are thrown around here a lot, and one of the biggest things we talk about is just, Dan does this to me. So Dan's my business partner, and he will, it's brilliant, it's smart, and I'm glad he does it, and then I hate it in the moment, where I'll say, hey, I've got this great idea of what we can do with Crema, or with a marketing budget, or with this other budget, and I'll say it's gonna cost $5,000. Not a whole lot of money in the scheme of things, but $5,000. And he immediately will say, if you were to spend that $5,000 on something else, what would it be? And it's like, but I'm excited about this thing over here, so that's, but we're always selling. Everybody's selling. Okay, so let's go back down to you're trying to sell to that person who has the reputation on the line, is trying to think about the company as a whole, hopefully. Sometimes you're dealing with somebody maybe hard-headed or stubborn or does not like change. Who should I be getting buy-in from if I'm selling up?
In my opinion, the first person you need to get buy-in from is yourself. Again, that
great.
sounds silly,
really good
but
point.
you need to really understand and vet out all of your ideas. Like, why are you doing this? Play devil's advocate with yourself. You have to arm yourself with the answers to all of the questions that somebody could potentially ask you. So first is yourself. Second, I would say, is your team or your peers or your, the other individuals who would be working on this with you or might have anything to do with it at the ground level, base level.
Yeah.
Those people need to be there to have your back, and you can show a unified front before you kind of move it up the ladder.
I think having a partner in crime is huge. Okay, so I think you're absolutely right. Getting buy-in, or believing in it personally, is huge.
Yeah. Yep.
And then getting buy-in from someone who can be like your advocate or your peer, I think is really important as well, so that you can have more than just, hey, I have an idea and I think it's really cool and let me do it. Bill Gates was asked like what was the single most important thing to success.
Okay.
And basically it was that he met his co-founder in school. And so he highly recommends that companies have a co-founder, a partner in crime to be able to go do things together. And I think the same is true when you're trying to push an idea forward. Don't do it solo. Get a peer or get somebody who can help you sell it.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
We've seen that happen with a lot of our clients when they're trying to do it by themselves. There's a lot of fear, and so like when they try to sell it, it comes across awkward and not confident. But when they have somebody next to them, a lot of that comes down, and they feel like they can have a unified front.
It's like applicable in so many different like aspects of business. Like even how we run our teams.
Yeah.
2 is better than 1. 2 brains can figure things out quicker and really refine ideas and make them better. So agree. Get a buddy.
Get a buddy.
Buddy system.
Okay, so then we want to talk a little bit about maybe some artifacts. What are tools or resources that somebody can use when selling up? So let's maybe set an example. There's a person, we'll say her name is Julie, and Julie has an idea for a new platform. We're going to talk in tech, right? Because it's what we build. We know could be anything, but we're going to say that she has a technology solution that's going to help their sales team communicate better.
Okay.
She's already maybe tried out a bunch of other tools online. She used Salesforce. She used all these other things, and she likes them. But she wants to create this space in between that's going to make a good product. But she knows that it's going to take some time to get it built, and she needs to get budget approved to get that done. How does she go about asking the director above her that maybe, say it's a company that has a director, and then above that director is then maybe a C-suite, and they have a board.
Okay.
So just to kind of paint a story here.
Yeah.
What does she do to go start thinking, I need to take this idea to my director?
So she, in short, wants to replace, for example, Salesforce with a tool made in-house.
Yeah, we'll say that. Salesforce is too much, is too bloated, too complicated.
Yeah.
We've got a really simple team. We know what we want to do. We're doing it all in Excel spreadsheets right now anyways. We're all avoiding Salesforce because it's too much.
Excel.
Man, runs companies in Excel. But we want to replace that because we think we could make something that's more efficient. The company's growing, it's gone global now, or whatever. How do I get buy-in from this director that I think that we could build a really great custom solution for ourselves?
So I think that the best place to start would be, and I'm a very much like a handwritten person. I like to write my notes handwritten. So I would start out by drawing out, hey, why does this purchased platform or tool, Salesforce in this example, why is it not working for me? Why is it not working for my team? Where are the flaws? And really outlining those. And then, start outlining or creating some sort of like prototype on paper.
Yeah.
For
start making, actually creating.
Because you're going to come up with stuff as you start really getting into the weeds of the issues that you're seeing. And I would start there and begin showing it to your peers. And
so this is where you then take maybe that idea that you scratched in the old on the back of an envelope or on the back of a napkin or something, and said, hey, I want to bring somebody in. Maybe a little bit more formal than that, but this is purely just ideation, trying to get out like what could this be. And then I think the step past that maybe is now to say, let's have a conversation with that director and say what's their risk appetite. Start to measure that, where you could say, I think there's an opportunity here. Discuss this amongst ourselves. We've looked at, maybe even talked to the sales team about how much they're using Salesforce or not. I know that we're probably spending, $3,000 a month on just one part of Salesforce.
yeah.
So now you're starting to collect data, and now you need to build a case. I think small wins are huge in selling up. So I think this is just dipping the toe. Like, how much would this director be willing, or whoever the stakeholder is, be willing to say yes?
Yeah.
And don't ask them to buy into, hey, I think we should build our own custom solution. It's gonna be massive and it's gonna solve all our problems. Don't go there, because that actually is really scary. Because all I see in my head when somebody comes to me with that is dollar signs.
Yeah.
Instead, I think that you should really focus on saying, how can I almost be more like an entrepreneur and say, I need a small win. I just need you to say, clear a little bit of budget for me to go test this. I don't want to build the whole thing yet. We just need a little more time and money to test out this idea. What comes after that? So now let's say he goes, all right, I'll loosen the leash a little bit, go for it. I want to see what you can come up with. You've got a couple months to go validate, or I don't even want to use validate the word, because he's probably not thinking validate.
Yeah.
She's not thinking validate.
He's probably like, yes, go.
Yeah,
go
just get away.
But I want to add one note to what you were saying. It's like, if you are, presenting this idea or a solution to your direct report, like your relationship with that individual is going to play really heavily on how much they trust you to do this or make that decision. So
it's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, and I feel like if you've got a good relationship with them, you're probably already talking about the issues that you're seeing, and the likelihood of they being getting buy-in from them is going to be much, much higher. So I would recommend continuing that relationship and making sure that it's transparent.
Timing is everything. I think that it's so hard to go to somebody if you have a leader that you're already butting heads with, and you're just like, I don't like any of the decisions they're making, and so I'm going to go tell them the way that ought to be done, and I've got the solution for it. Likely, you're not going to get a lot of buy-in.
Probably not going to happen.
And if anything, you're going to be put in a corner. And so I totally agree. I think that as much as you can say, you know what, I've got an idea, but I might hold it for the next 3-6 months. Because my boss and I are not getting along right now. And I need to build back up that bank account of trust so that when I do go to ask, there's a lot more opportunity to say that they might say yes. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. So second phase, they have cleared some budget. You've got a little bit of leeway. They've said, hey, go figure out how you might validate this. I think that's when you need to start creating, actually making something real. There's two things you can do here, actually. I think there's surveying, which is just collecting more data, figuring out where are the biggest pain points, who are experiencing that pain point, whether it's the customer. In our example, maybe it's the sales force, the team itself. Start interviewing more of them, figure out where is the simplest solution to solve that problem, and then start to look for ways to create prototype or create something that you can show them, and then once you show them and validate, you can show your boss. I think having a visual asset is no one knows what they want until they see it. And so the boss isn't going to get it. Most of the time they don't get it until they've seen it. We've experienced this. We've had clients that came to us and said, hey, I'm taking a huge risk. Clients like give me a little bit of budget, so we start to immediately prototype, and they come back and they show it, and they're like, oh my gosh, they're pumped. Now they're ready to move.
Seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing.
I think that this phase is really where Crema sales pitch comes in, and we kill it at this phase. So
it's a lot of the value that we thanks, good job. A lot of the value that we bring is at this phase, right? Because we're always thinking about how to validate ideas early and often. I don't like the term MVP, minimum viable product, because I think that means something different for everybody. But do think about what is something that I can use as a visual asset to sell the idea to potential customers or users, and then to sell the idea up. Absolutely. It goes both ways. Okay, so you now have a tool. Sales team's like, that would be really helpful. Or maybe they said, it's not quite right, and you iterated on it and you came up with something really good. What are some tactics about how to go back and say, hey, I think we should go build this. At this point, I need some real money to go build this.
Right. So you've got this, high fidelity prototype or some really pretty fleshed out ideas, first phase anyways. And I think the next phase for presenting this information to the people who are going to give you buy-in is, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but You need to play the game.
Play the game.
This is when you start playing the game.
Yeah. It is a game and you have to play it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being completely realistic, it doesn't matter if you're in the smallest organization or the largest organization. You need to figure out what is important to those higher ups, to the people in power, and make sure or figure out how your product or solution aligns with it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. The idea that you can go in and just say like, I think this vision's clear. The sales team wants it. Give me the money to go do it. Well, that there's no motivational factor for your leadership there.
Yeah.
If you know what the vision of the company is, or what the mission of the company is, or where certain budgets might be allocated for this year or next quarter or whatever that is, knowing that information and becoming more prepared to the meeting or to the pitch, because you got to think about it like a pitch.
Yeah.
Like you are pitching investors, because that's basically what you're doing, except your investors are your bosses. So be okay going into the room and saying, okay, I know that what's important to you is that the CEO and the COO want us to meet these goals this year. They told us that in the, whatever the, what's that called? What are those meetings called? We don't have those meetings.
Like the quarterly meetings, like, where they give you vague numbers on a screen.
Yeah, there was a PowerPoint involved.
That's the one.
Yeah. I would say that's the other thing. Have a PowerPoint presentation ready, but don't only have a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
They're gonna want it. All business degrades to PowerPoint and Excel. We know it.
We all hate it, but it's just life.
Yeah, it's business. But don't only have a PowerPoint as much as possible. Again, have those other assets that are visual, that are different, that stand out from the other presentations that have been pitched for the last, 6 months.
Yeah, forever.
And be unique, stand out. Sell yourself, your idea, your team. Make sure that you've done the research about like, here's how I think we can get this accomplished. And then really tie it back to what matters to them. So the vision, mission, values of the company, maybe the ROI if you know what that could be. You don't always know what that can be, but potentially. Maybe tie it into other initiatives that are happening. So we've got a client right now that they're building a product that's actually very unique. You're working with them. Very unique for the company and the original business model of this massive organization.
Yes.
Yet what he's done a really good job of doing, selling it in, is it always kind of sells into some other initiatives, and maybe he can kind of piggyback on those, and that allows him to keep releasing budget to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
I think without having tied it back into the grander vision of the organization, this little like side project would not keep getting funded.
And it's all because he is like intentionally staying in the loop of what goals the business has.
Yeah.
So I recommend that as well. I do want to say like this idea of being an entrepreneur of this product or solution, like I like that mindset a lot. Like go pitch it. This is your baby. This is your idea. If you are an entrepreneur pitching to just a regular, business any other day, like how would you approach this differently than maybe you would as an internal employee of somebody? So I like taking on that mindset of the entrepreneur. That's really great.
I think the best entrepreneurs stand out. So be careful not to be boring, for lack of better words. I don't know how else to say that.
Bland?
For bland. That's why I say get outside of the PowerPoint a little bit.
Yep.
Make sure it's consumable.
Yeah.
But in that pitch, make sure that you stand out, that you got a vision for what this could be. I think that's, when you get to the pitch. Now, I want to get to some of these kind of tips, but I think one thing to consider is if you're an entrepreneur, or we're going to call you an entrepreneur because that's kind of a thing that people say, or you're trying to be innovative or disrupt your company.
Oh boy,
Can we drop any more buzzwords in here? If you're trying to do those things, be comfortable, just like any entrepreneur, with maybe hearing no the first time.
Yeah, sucks, but it's truth.
Yeah, so when you hear no, does not have to mean it's never gonna happen.
Right.
Again, right time, right place. And bank of trust.
That's right.
So it may be that they just don't trust you yet. Build that bank of trust. Just wait, be patient, and then come back. Maybe it's that they need you to kind of just do a little bit of extra side hustle to build up the idea. So get more buy-in, get more of a group effort involved. Spend some time after hours to kind of build up that concept so that they can really understand it. And then try to keep selling it in.
Yep.
Get the right people involved. There are some companies that are just going to say no. And I get that. That is something we heard as well with clients that we work with. And that's a culture thing. We can't always fix that, but there are ways that, again, seeing is believing. Build up that bank of trust. Have a wingman, a wingwoman.
Be the entrepreneur of your idea.
Be the entrepreneur of the idea. Small wins are huge. So any way that you can kind of build up incrementally going towards that, I think is a big step.
So on that.
And then hire Crema.
Hire Crema. On that, the small incremental steps that we're taking. So one thing that I want us to talk about while we're discussing this topic is, you know, how much should you be showing? How many of these incremental changes should you be, you know, delivering up the stream to these people who you're trying to get buy-in from? Like, where's the line at between being transparent with your progress, or, you know, the line between being transparent and being obnoxious? Where does that live?
Yeah, and honestly, that also plays into like, when do you tell them like, hey, it hasn't worked yet, like we haven't hit our success metrics yet, but give me more time and we might, you know, that kind of thing. I think it definitely depends on the culture of the company. Some companies are going to have a lot more autonomy to allow you to do more things. I think you need to know your leaders, again, that trust relationship, to know how much they want to be involved. Sometimes they're going to want to be involved on a regular basis. And then being really transparent will get them even more excited because they feel like they have buy-in. There are some leaders that as soon as you give them that transparency, they go, oh, you want me to help lead it. Which then, depending on what type of leader you have, becomes an interesting challenge of like micromanaging.
Yeah.
You don't want to be micromanaged. But, so I think, I hate the word it depends, but it does depend a little bit on your culture.
And your leadership.
And your leadership. But I think we have found at Crema, when selling ourselves and selling our relationship with our clients, more frequent is better. We stand out a lot amongst other vendors and contractors and teams and agencies because what we say is that we are now your team. And so as much as you can understand what's happening right now, the better, because then you're not surprised.
Yep.
Whether it's a good surprise or a bad surprise. You're not surprised when it's like 6 weeks later and you're like, well, where is it? And they're like, well, we're not done. Or, oh yeah, well, we totally, like, actually the whole sales team's already using it. Those are both ends of the spectrum that you might not want to have happen.
Right.
So
I feel like you can avoid a lot of really uncomfortable conversations if you're just regularly transparent. And we use this term constant collaboration, and that's really what it is. It's just being open and straightforward with what's going on. But again, just depends on your company and your leadership and who's buying in.
And if they don't have time for you, because let's be honest, leadership's busy. So if they don't have time for you and they don't want to make time for this conversation to happen on a more frequent basis, then look for ways to create more artifacts or assets that you can share with them so they can look at it in their own time. So as much as possible saying, here are the metrics that we're hitting right now, or here's an updated design, or you could actually log in and look at the product as it's being deployed right now. So yeah, I mean, just share. If they want to look at it, great. If they don't have time, then keep moving forward. But the longer that it goes without them seeing progress, just know the risk of success or failure, I think, becomes amplified.
Yeah, I do like the idea of like respecting their time and giving them, you know, as much as you can, because I think that it might win some brownie points.
Think like an entrepreneur as much as possible. I think also make sure you de-risk as much as possible. Validate things early and often. So test, ask people, collect data. Work with the team you trust. I think that's where we come in as a value prop. But if you have a team internally, look to figure out how you can use those resources in the right way. Try not to screw over other teams in the process.
That's a no-no.
It's dirty. What else? I think this has been good. I think as you think about selling up, this is a difficult thing to do. And it's stressful. Sometimes your job can be on the line, whether or not it wins or loses. So we get that. I think the big theme you're hearing though is trust. Don't do it alone. Seeing is believing.
Absolutely agree. You can do it. I mean, I did it at Crema. I had an idea.
That's right.
It was nerve-wracking trying to, present that and get buy-in, but it was absolutely well worth it, and I'm, working on something that I'm really, really passionate about. So might be scary. You might feel nervous, but at the end of the day, like, if you're passionate about it, do do it.
Yeah, and I think that passion totally came through because when you came with this idea, we didn't know about it. She came with an idea for kind of a tool that she wanted to make, or a community that she wanted to build. She had a presentation, but it was really more of her passion around what it could be, and that she had talked to other organizations and how we could pull in more people, so she had validated a bit already. And so it was kind of a no-brainer at that point. Now, we have a culture of allowing people to experiment and try new things, so I think that she was probably had more confidence to do it because of our culture.
Yes.
Not all cultures are that way.
It was like my second month here too, so.
It's true.
I think that's the what made me feel motivated to do it, but it was still scary, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys. If I can do it, and I'm terrified of like public speaking and like, offending anybody, you can do it. It was scary, but it was so worth it. And I think that, if you've got the tools in place, even if you're scared of people and talking, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Go sell your idea, and you know what? Let us know how it goes. If you come back to this video, drop a comment down below, wherever platform you're watching us on. And if you got to the end of watching a Mugs Up Monday, as always, we want to know.
Yeah.
Because they're long, and we're always curious as to who gets to this point. Prove it. Prove that you were here now, and give us a little like and a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching Mugs Up Monday. We'll see you next Monday.
Have a beautiful week.
Oh, you might not see us next Monday because Larissa wants time off.
Who does that? Who spends time with their family? Bye.
Bye.